out of the Army. And I guess this has always been near and dear to my heart. I've said this many times. I said, everybody leaves the Army. There are 3 ways to leave the Army if you're in the Army. One of those is really bad, and 2, I guess, are pretty good. Okay, you can ETS, you can PCS, you ETS, retire, or die. But you all leave the military. So any leadership out there that says, hey, you cannot go to a career skills program, be very cautious of that. Because maybe I say that when it's time for you to transition. And I'm not going to say that. So I need everybody to understand we all leave the military, and then we all need to make sure we enable our soldiers to transition. This is good for our Army. We want soldiers to leave and talk good about the Army, no matter how they leave the Army. You all have to do it. Everybody leaves the Army. So don't hinder your soldiers from taking the time to go do their career skills program, the transition program. Because when you do it, you'll want time to do it. And you just do the exact same thing at your location. And then I'll close with this little story about transitioning soldiers. And everybody leaves the Army. So I had a soldier about 3 weeks ago. Actually, his boss, one of his coworkers called my wife. A little scary. Got my wife's phone number. Got the cell phone. So that happened. He's a policeman, so I guess it makes me feel a little better. He calls and mom's like, do you know this guy named J.J. McClure? I'm like, yeah. I was a staff sergeant. I'm like, well, I'm not sure how this is going to go, but I'll call him back because I chaptered J.J. McClure out of the United States Army. I mean, I did. It's like, well, why do they call me? This is like 30 years ago. And I talked to him, and he said, he's my boss. And he's talked great about you his whole life. I'm like, JJ? I was the devil. And I literally chaptered him out of the Army. He just got diagnosed with ALS, and I want you to call him. So how people transition matter. Are you going to be the leader, the staff sergeant, that when you chapter somebody out, they're on their deathbed, they'll call you? That's how important it is to our country when people transition. We get that right, we won't have to worry about our sessions. Because every person that leaves the military is going to talk well, like J.J. McClure, and I wish him all the best. So, with that.
There was a lot of discussion about social media and leaders online, but in the last 2 years, I've watched your office empower your staff to be online, to get your message out, to get messages from the force. And we've worked with them to intervene in suicide prevention efforts. We've intervened in sexual harassment efforts and made those reportings to the command. So I feel like it's been really important the last couple of years, the standard that you've set and the example that you've made. We have more soldiers here because of it. So how do we take this example and replicate it for leaders across the force? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. I would just say I got your back. And I think every NCO in here needs to say the exact same thing. And it doesn't matter whether I'm on social media, if I'm intervening with a suicide, and those have been fantastic, and we have to do better. But it also means in person. We absolutely, and it doesn't matter. And believe it or not, when you look this up in the Army Command Policy, it tells us to do that. Read it. It's I already looked it up. Paragraph 4-19, it says, as a leader, we expect, this is written in the Army Command Policy, and if you hadn't read it, please do on paragraph 4-19, and it talks about, as a leader, you're expected to intervene on behalf of your soldiers. And then it says, in parentheses, online and in person. I mean, I got it. It's like, but Sergeant Major, yeah, it's our policy. I can print it out, just in case I forgot it, but I didn't. But that's what, I think we got to do that. You got to do it professionally. You know, you got to do it the right way. I think I've learned my own lessons. Sometimes I did it right. Sometimes I get it all right. So, but we would never hesitate to intervene on behalf of our soldiers. Hopefully, in person, right? I mean, this is a true story. I won't tell you where it was. So I was somewhere with one of my soldiers, and one of my soldiers does not drink alcohol. And somebody offered him something to drink. And, you know, somebody says, well, you know, you couldn't be in my army. That's what he said to the soldier. I said, okay, that's good, because I want him in my army. I'm going to stick up for my soldiers. I don't care where you're at. That's how I feel about it. And that is me. I mean, that's what you get. And that's what we want you to do every day, no matter where you're at, in which venue you're at. Right? NCOs. We got to remember that we got to build that trust back. We got to be willing to do that. More importantly than online, you got to do it in person. That's what I would say to you too. Is bottom line, we are people, and we have to talk to each other. And I get really worried when you say, "Well, this thing is going on over here," you know, but this thing going on over here should not, you know, override the trust you have in your squad, in your unit. And I had this conversation with, well, actually, Sergeant Rainier. Very heated conversation. I was looking at him like, Sergeant Rainier, no matter what is said online, no matter what did I say to you yesterday? I said, no matter what, would I do this for you?
You said you would die. You would die for us. You would die for your squad. You said that very directly.
I did. And I said, don't, you know, all these things are going to happen. There's going to be said. But I want you to know you're my squad and I would die for you. And I said, do you believe me? He said, yeah. 33 years I've been a non-commissioned officer. I've been extremely proud to be a non-commissioned officer. I've loved every second of it, and I think my basic responsibilities are still there, whether I was a sergeant to be the sergeant major of the Army. And that's a long time, but those grounded fundamentals haven't changed, and what you've done for the Army has been phenomenal. And then the last group is the soldiers. It really comes to what I told Sergeant Rainier is, you know, people say, would you do it again? And I would say, absolutely. I would die for our soldiers because they would die for our country. And that's a powerful statement, but it's so true. I see it in their eyes, in their spirit. And if you're wrong, just look at the front two rows over to my left. And when people, and I'm going to tell you this in my parting ways, and people say, if anybody tells you that, you know, what's going on with your generation or any of that, it's just straight crap. You know, you're great, and you're going to be greater than we ever were. And don't let anybody tell you anything different. I'm proud to be your Sergeant Major of the Army, and I'm proud that you're a soldier in the United States Army. So thanks. Have a wonderful day.